All right, so you want to dive into this stack of notes about Russian martial arts movement.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So have you ever watched those videos and wondered, like, how are they doing that? It's like their bodies are made of water and steel at the same time, you know?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah. It's incredible.
It is. So we're diving deep today into the principles behind those fluid, powerful movements.
It's really fascinating, actually. This system is all about blending physics with, your natural body mechanics.
Yeah. And it's so effective, but also adaptable. I mean,
Well, exactly.
you see so much variation within the different styles.
Definitely. Okay, so first up, and this one might sound a little counterintuitive, we're talking waves. Not the ocean kind, though, although that'd be cool, too.
Yeah, the kind that flow through your body. So imagine like a wave of energy starting at your feet, right?
Huh.
Traveling up your spine and then boom, exploding out your fist. That's the kind of power we're talking about.
That's a great way to visualize it, and that's really what it's all about. Wave movement, in this context, it's not about brute force.
Yeah.
It's about maximizing the transfer of energy.
Yeah.
So minimizing wasted motion, thinking about smooth, ripple-like motions almost that transition seamlessly through the body.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so our notes get into specifics, and we've got spine undulations. Like, think of that cat-cow stretch in yoga.
Right.
But then picture using that to, like, slip under an opponent's punch and then spring back up with your own attack.
Exactly. And your source actually talks about this.
Yeah.
How skilled practitioners can even use these very subtle spinal waves to manipulate their center of gravity,
Oh, wow.
making them a smaller target, harder to hit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then you have the shoulder waves, which can add this deceptive power to strikes.
Really?
Yeah, so picture like a whip cracking, right? That very swift transfer of energy. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Oh, I see. So ditch the stiff robot moves and embrace your inner ribbon dancer. Right? It's about that, like, fluid, whip-like grace.
That's a great analogy because it highlights a really key point in what you're talking about. It's not about rigid techniques.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating this flow that originates from your core and then it radiates outwards.
Oh, I like that.
Originates from your core, radiates outwards. Okay. And that's what we're trying to tap into.
Okay, cool. Which leads us to the next level, which is linking those individual waves into a chain reaction. This is what's known as kinetic chains.
Right, yeah.
So tell me more about that, because I feel like I've heard this term, but I need it broken down.
Sure. So imagine your body is a series of interconnected links,
Okay.
like a chain.
Gotcha.
When one link moves, it sets off this chain reaction,
Huh?
and it transfers the energy through that whole system.
Interesting. You're saying our bodies can kind of be like that whip again, with energy traveling through it to deliver this, like, focused force?
Precisely. That's a great way to think about it. And you're right. It mentions how the upper and lower body work together,
Oh, cool.
and it breaks these chains down.
So, for example, like a straight punch.
Yeah.
That's not just about your arm.
Exactly. It's about the legs pushing off the ground.
Right.
It's about rotating the hips, transferring through the core,
Yeah.
and then ultimately it expresses through the fist.
Wow. That's so cool. So we've all felt this kind of connected power, though. Like, at some
Yeah.
point, maybe you're playing a sport or dancing or even just nailing, like, that perfect golf swing. Like, your whole body, it just works in
Yeah.
perfect harmony.
It just flows.
Yes. And that's what these martial arts movements are tapping into, right?
Absolutely. And recognizing that feeling, understanding where that comes from,
Mm-hmm.
is the first step to kind of harnessing it.
Yes.
And not just in martial arts, but in any physical activity.
Okay, so we've got these chains, this idea of energy flowing through our bodies. But now let's move to something equally cool, but maybe a little less intuitive. Let's talk about your center of gravity.
Oh, yeah.
And no, this isn't physics class,
Right.
but it is about understanding how to use your body's natural, like, balance point to move with more power, more precision, just like they do in Russian martial arts.
And it is fascinating how often we're moving without consciously considering our center of gravity at all.
Totally.
But in these martial arts, it's not just about being strong. It's about being aware of this kind of central point in your body
Right.
and being able to manipulate it strategically.
Both for offense and defense.
So break it down for me. Like, for those of us who don't think about our center of gravity all the time,
Sure.
what is this thing? So think of it as your body's balancing point. So that point where its mass seems concentrated.
Okay.
If you lower it, you have stability.
Yeah.
Like if you're bracing for impact, you want to be like, really, really, if they raise it or shift it, that's when you can start to generate momentum for more dynamic movements or for strikes.
Okay, so I can see how that'd be useful in a fight, but what about just like everyday life?
Well, I mean, think about athletes, dancers. They're constantly adjusting their center of gravity. And actually, it mentions this in your notes,
Yeah.
emphasizes exercises like squats and lunges, which, if you think about it, are all about controlling that center of gravity as you move up and down.
Oh, that's so true.
It's fundamental body awareness.
I like it. It's funny you mentioned that because I bet most people don't think of like doing squats as martial arts training, but they totally are.
They are.
Building that foundation of awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from that foundation, then you can build towards these more dynamic movements, even just like walking.
Wow.
And talks about even using subtle shifts in your center of gravity to enhance strikes, to use your opponent's momentum against them. It's really quite clever.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've covered waves, chains, this whole center of gravity thing. You ready for something even more mind-blowing?
Always up for a good, mind-blowing concept.
All right. Let's talk about resonance. What is this mysterious force?
So this is where things get really, really elegant, I think. Resonance, in the context of movement, it's like finding your body's natural rhythm.
Okay.
It's that sweet spot where minimal effort leads to maximum output.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I need an example. Paint me a picture using this resonance thing.
All right, so imagine pushing someone on a swing set.
Yeah.
If you time your pushes right in sync with the natural arc of the swing,
Right.
you get this amazing amplification of the movement with very little effort on your part.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's resonance.
Okay.
And believe it or not, our bodies, they have these natural rhythms too.
Really? So it's kind of like tapping into that like sweet spot where your body wants to move.
Yeah.
And then you just amplify it.
Yes.
I like it.
You're working with it, not against it.
So where do we see this in the Russian martial arts stuff?
Well, he talks about, it mentions something called pendulum movements, which kind of illustrate this beautifully. So think about the natural swing of your arms, for example, or your legs as they move around a joint.
Okay.
Or even your whole body swaying around your center of gravity.
Interesting.
It's about working with those natural rhythms.
So instead of forcing these movements, it's about finding that flow, that effortless power.
Exactly.
I've definitely felt like in the zone physically where, everything's just clicking. And I imagine that's kind of tapping into those rhythms, that resonance.
It is an incredible feeling, isn't it?
It is.
And it speaks to the power of, aligning with your body's natural design.
Yeah.
It's not all about brute force.
Yeah.
It's about finesse, timing, this harmony of movement.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so we've got all these incredible concepts, right? Like we've got waves, chains, center of gravity, this resonance thing. It's like we've got the blueprint now for moving with serious power and efficiency.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff.
But how does a martial artist take all of that and actually, apply it? That feels like the real challenge.
Well, that's the real heart of it, isn't it? Because, it's not enough to just understand these principles in isolation. Like, the real magic happens when you learn to integrate them all.
Yeah.
To kind of weave them together seamlessly.
So it's less about, checking boxes and more about this, journey of exploration and integration.
Exactly.
Kind of like mastering a new language almost, where you're just like...
That's a great way to put it. Because it really is. It takes time. It takes practice. And, you're right. This source we're looking at, it really emphasizes that dedicated training, working with experienced instructors. It's vital.
Yeah.
Because it's about developing this really deep, intuitive understanding of how these concepts actually manifest in your own movement.
It makes me think of those, really seasoned musicians, who can just, feel the music. It's like they stop thinking about individual notes and they just, flow.
Yes, there's a real parallel there.
Yes.
Because it becomes less about conscious thought and more about, embodied knowledge. You're reacting instinctively from this, deep well of understanding.
That's amazing. It's inspiring, even though we may not be, training to be martial arts masters.
Right.
It is exciting to think about how we can apply these principles in our own lives, even in, subtle ways.
Absolutely. And I think, hopefully this deep dive has given us all a fresh perspective on movement in general.
It really has. We've explored these fascinating principles of Russian martial arts, movement waves, chains, center of gravity, and resonance, and seen how they all work together to create fluidity, power, and really just this incredible efficiency of motion. But here's a final thought before we wrap up. We've been talking about martial arts, but where else in your life could you benefit from moving with more awareness, more intention? Maybe it's your next workout, maybe it's your dance class, or maybe it's just, navigating that crowded train platform. Until next time, keep exploring, keep moving, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.